Hello, viewers of The Pioneer. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. Today, we will again bring you the latest developments in the Russia-Ukraine war. As we often mention in our reports, Ukrainian armed forces troops continue to hold a defensive position across the front line. The Russian armed forces are trying to overcome the positions of the Ukrainian army by carrying out their attacks. For more than 2.5 months, there have been an intense pressure of the Russian armed forces on the Ukrainian positions. Even if the units of the Russian armed forces have tried to overcome the Ukrainian positions within 2.5 months, the desired success has not still been achieved. There is an intense resistance of the Ukrainian armed forces. The biggest problem in this resistance is the air force superiority of the Russian army. However, the Ukrainian army manages to stop the Russian army despite this air force pressure. As we have stated in our reports, on the agenda, this air force superiority will be eliminated when the Ukrainian armed forces start using F-16 fighter jets. So what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring you developments regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. Thank you in advance for your supports. Let's start if you are ready, the Pioneer reports. Let's make a change today and start from north and work our way south. We see that the Luhansk front line on the map. According to the latest reports, Russian armed forces are trying to squeeze in near Terny. As you can see on the map, it is located around the Zerobets River. It is a very critical position for the Ukrainian armed forces. Here we can say that the Russian armed forces are trying to push the Ukrainian troops to the other side of the river. However, we think that this will create an advantage for the Ukrainian army in terms of region. If Ukrainian troops are pushed to the other side of the river here, Russian troops will not have a chance to advance further. It is claimed that wet weather is approaching in the region. If this is the case, the flow rate of the river will increase accordingly. Of course, this will give the Ukrainian armed forces a chance to have a natural defense line in the region. Therefore, we think that the Ukrainian armed forces should reconsider the idea of tactical withdrawal. Throwing the Ukrainian troops to the other side of the river due to the pressure of the Russian troops will greatly boost the morale of the Russian armed forces. The Russian troops should not be given the credit for the successes. We say that the Ukrainian troops are also in a psychological war. Of course, in this situation, the Ukrainian armed forces should be even more careful. Another region where the Ukrainian armed forces are under pressure is Sinkivka. According to reports, the Russian armed forces have intensified their attacks on Sinkivka. However, Ukrainian resistance here is quite strong. So far, there are no reports that the Russian armed forces have made any progress. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Yapoliivka, Zarchiny, Terny, and Ivanivka. In contrast, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Dibrova, Kozumini, Karmina, and Shipoliivka. Let's continue our report by analyzing the latest situation on the Bakhmut front line. According to the latest reports, units of the Russian armed forces are conducting quite serious operations in the Bogdanivka direction. Russian artillery units are very active in the region. Ukrainian positions are constantly under fire. However, so far the units of the Russian armed forces have not made any progress so far. The border line in the direction of Bogdanivka is largely stable. On the other hand, the Russian armed forces have increased their attacks on Klishchivka and Andriivka, fortified positions south of Bakhmut city center. We have described the situation here on several occasions. During the summer offensive, units of the Ukrainian armed forces carried out an intense offensives in this area to encircle the city center of Bakhmut. In particular, the capture of Klishchivka and Andriivka considerably depressed the Russian armed forces. Therefore, since the Ukrainian armed forces have taken a defensive position, the Russian armed forces have been carrying out intensive attacks on Andriivka and Klishchivka. However, as we mentioned, the Ukrainian armed forces have the advantage of dominant hills in this area, which prevents the advance of the Russian armed forces. Let us continue by analyzing the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian armed forces positions in Bogdanivka, Ivanyivsky, Kaliniivka, and Chasov Yar. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in Odradiivka, Ivanhard, Bakhmut city center, and Khromov. Let's continue our report by analyzing the latest situation on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, units of the Russian armed forces continued their offensives on the Donetsk front line. However, we can say that today's attacks are weaker compared to the previous days. As you know, Russian troops in this region were carrying out their attacks not only from a single point, but from many points. However, the Ukrainian army's attacks on the back lines of the Russian army in recent days seems to have worked. The attacks of the Russian troops have slowed down. According to the latest reports, Russian troops are fighting hard on the Donetsk front line in Novomykhailivka and west of Mariinka. Ukrainian troops are responding intensively to the Russian offensive there. There are also numerous reports that units of the Russian armed forces are trying to advance in the direction of Predachi. However, there is no confirmed progress so far. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Berdichi, Stepov, Estamininivka, Andriivka, Avdiivka, and Severnoye. In contrast, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Karmainka, Krasnohorivka, Veseliv, and Kurtabalka. Let us also look at the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, units of the Russian armed forces continued offensive operations both in the Stormayorsk area and in the direction of the village of Verbotny and Novoprokopivka. However, so far, we don't see any gains by the Russian armed forces. Ukrainian troops continue to hold their positions. There are also reports that the Ukrainian troops in the Verbov direction have captured new positions. However, confirmation has not yet been provided. We don't think that these claims have any truth because the Ukrainian army has stopped its attempts to advance for a while. What do you think? Do you think the Ukrainian army will be able to stop the Russian offensive? What will be the reason for the slowdown of the Russian offensive? Do you think the Ukrainian army's decision to move to a defensive position was rational? Should the Ukrainian armed forces move to the offensive position again? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.